Welcome to Pimpy's Investment Chat, where we keep investment talk simple. And here's your host, Pimpy.
What is going on out there, peeps? Earlier today, I did an interview with Nader. It was a lot of fun, and it was very informative. Hopefully, you had a chance to catch the video. If not, if you come over to my YouTube channel and you want to see the video, click live, because that's where these videos are. The ones I do live, they are in their own separate category. So come here to the one that says Pimpy and Nader live. They give you an opportunity to catch what we talked about earlier today. And I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to having Nader on again later on down the line. But in the meantime, here's the thing. Al-Sadini is trying to stay out of all the crap that's going on over in the Middle East. He really is. He's trying to stay neutral. He's trying to just focus on Iraqi people. But it doesn't help when the United States is bombing Iranian-backed militant groups in Iraq. At the same time, it's not cool that these militant groups are launching missiles at our U.S. soldiers. So talk about being stuck between a rock and a hard place. It sure to hell seems like there's a lot of people out there that are hell-bent trying to force everybody into a World War III. It really does appear that way. If there isn't one thing, it's another. When you start to take a step back and take a look at, the whole Ukraine-Russia thing, the whole Israel and Gaza thing, there's something that doesn't sit right about it. It just doesn't look right at all. So back to Iraq, it doesn't help Al-Sadini that Iranian-backed militants are launching missiles at U.S. soldiers in Iraq. Again, I do believe Al-Sadini is trying to stay neutral, stay out of this crap, and focus on Iraqi people. But this doesn't help their cause at all. So let's get into this. Iraq warns U.S. is trying to destabilize country with attack on militia. Iraq, considered by the United States to be a regional security partner, has strongly condemned President Joe Biden's decision to conduct airstrikes against militia accused of attacking U.S. forces in the country, warning that a cycle of unrest threatened to destabilize the nation. And this is exactly one of the things I spoke about. This is what we don't want to happen. Iraq is doing so good. In my opinion, they're doing very good. This crap right here is not good for the Iraqi people. It definitely isn't good for the Iraqi Dinar to be dealing with this, especially when they're trying to get themselves cleaned up and convince the world that they indeed are stable over there and secure. The Iraqi government asserts that the recent escalation in the Iraqi arena over the past 2 days is a dangerous development involving an unacceptable violation of Iraqi sovereignty. Iraqi government spokesperson said in a statement shared to the news, the government is steadfastly committed under all circumstances to preserving, safeguarding, and defending Iraqi sovereignty in accordance with its constitutional and legal duties. We are vehemently condemning the attack on the town of al-Nusra, executed without the knowledge of the Iraqi government agencies. This action is a blatant violation of sovereignty and an attempt to destabilize the security situation. If the U.S. tells the Iraqi government what their plans are, do you trust them not to warn these militants that are out there launching missiles at the United States soldiers? Or do you trust them that they won't say nothing? That's the issue. Not knowing whether or not they can be trusted. At the same time, the Iraqi government also issued a warning to militia operating independently from the military. Any armed action or activity outside the military institution is deemed condemnable and an unlawful endeavor that jeopardizes the national interest. Also, any armed elements or entity failing to adhere to this principle are acting against the national interest, and the government will take necessary measures to safeguard Iraqis' national interests. One of the bigger issues is the fact that these militia or militant groups, whatever you want to call them, these are Iranian-backed groups. The people that's in power over in Iraq, the coordinated framework, are Iranian-backed puppets. So it's hard to decide whether or not you can trust the government to do everything it needs to do to protect the U.S. soldiers while they're there. United States Central Command announced 2 rounds of attacks conducted Tuesday and Wednesday against groups said to be responsible for the ongoing campaign of rocket and drone attacks against U.S. troops in Iraq and neighboring Syria. The first strike was said to have been conducted using AC-130 gunships. Individuals responsible for launching a missile attack on U.S. and coalition personnel at the air base in Iraq, resulting in several enemy casualties. The second involved discrete precision strikes against 2 facilities in Iraq in response to the attacks against U.S. and coalition forces by Iran and Iran-backed groups. Following the first strike, the group calling itself the Islamic Resistance in Iraq announced the death of one of its members, who rose as a martyr in the battle of truth against falsehood embodied by the American occupation forces in Iraq. The Islamic resistance in Iraq, which CENTCOM told the news earlier this week, was believed to be a broader term used to describe the operations of all Iran-backed militia in Iraq, has claimed regular attacks on U.S. troops in Iraq and Syria since October 17th, the same day that Israel and Palestine factions, led by Hamas, blamed one another for a deadly attack on the Baptist hospital in Gaza amid an ongoing war there. After announcing the death of the martyr, the Islamic resistance of Iraq claimed new attacks Tuesday against American occupation at the base near Syria Northeast Province and Asad Air Base in western Iraq, both in response to the crimes committed by the enemy against our people in Gaza. On Wednesday, following news of a second U.S. strike, the group claimed 2 more attacks on U.S. forces at an airbase in northern Iraq. Axis of Resistance. A number of militia aligned with the pro-Iranian Axis of Resistance in Iraq and beyond have expressed their support for Palestinians engaged in the deadliest ever flare-up of violence with Israel. Amid them is Hezbollah, which held funerals for martyrs and later 8 others said to be killed in Wednesday's U.S. strike. Like a number of influential Iraqi militia, Hezbollah is official part of the Popular Mobilization Forces, an Iraqi state-sponsored umbrella comprised groups that rose up against the Islamic State militant group, ISIS, nearly a decade ago. Many of these groups operate with autonomy from the Iraqi armed forces, putting pressure on Baghdad from within as well. Hawadi, for this part, emphasized that the Iraqi government is solely dedicated to enforcing the law and holding violators accountable, a prerogative exclusively within its purview. Iran has openly expressed its support for the Axis of Resistance militia in Iraq and elsewhere, including Lebanon, Hezbollah, and Yemen's Ansar Allah, also known as the Houthis, both of which have conducted attacks against Israel in support of Palestine. Iranian officials have repeatedly denied, however, that they issued orders or had command and control over militia attacking Israel and U.S. troops. So there's fears, of course, that this conflict in Israel is actually spreading. Newsweek reported on Iraqi officials concerned that the war in Gaza could spread to Baghdad if escalation continued to mount. Baghdad has long been on the front line of the rivalry between Washington and Tehran, especially since U.S.-led invasion toppled longtime Iraqi President Saddam Hussein 2 decades ago. U.S. forces immediately faced off with rival Sunni and Shiite Muslim insurgencies, the latter of which received support from Iran. Look, if Iran keeps this up, and I'm surprised it hasn't been done yet, but if they keep this up, they're going to end up just like Iraq. It isn't going to take much for our military to go in there and whip their ass real quick. We took down the 3rd largest tank division in the world in 3 days. We had air supremacy, I think, in less than 4 hours. Many of these Shiite Muslim groups would go on to form the Popular Mobilization Group and its fight against ISIS in 2014. After withdrawing from Iraq in 2011, the U.S. mobilized an international coalition of its own to battle ISIS in Iraq and Syria. With the jihadis largely defeated and tensions mounting between U.S. and Iran in 2019, however, Iraqi militia turned their rockets against U.S. troops, demanding a withdrawal from the country. A deadly series of escalations later that year accumulated with the U.S. killing Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Quds Force Commander Soleimani and Popular Mobilization's second-in-command, al-Muhandis, along with their entourage at Baghdad International Airport. The act was condemned at the time by Iraq, and now too, Baghdad fears instability could threaten to tear the nation apart as a result of foreign intervention. We emphasize that the presence of the global coalition against the Daesh in Iraq is intended to support the work of our armed forces through training and advisory assistance. The recent incidents represents a clear violation of the coalition's mission to combat Daesh, ISIS, on Iraqi soil. We call on all parties to avoid unilateral actions and to respect Iraq's sovereignty, which will not tolerate any form of violations. Anyways, this isn't good. We don't want things to flare up over in Iraq. Iraq is doing so good to get back in the good graces of the United States as well as the international community. The last thing you need is for the United States to be violating their sovereignty by attacking people in Iraq. At the same time, you can't help but understand where the United States is coming from. If you're going to launch missiles at U.S. soldiers, you should expect retaliation. Anyways, you guys let me know what you think. Is this a big issue? Is this going to get worse? Or are calmer heads going to prevail? Leave a comment down below and I'll get back at you later. I'm out.